Okay, welcome everybody. It's the 24th of July. Can you believe it? We passed half the year now, and we've done about, I think it's now three, so we've on about number 15 of these little webinar stroke podcasts, which has been really lovely. And I'm particularly thrilled to have our regulars. Junior, Hallie, Jennifer, Francis has joined us. So, and we've got Samuel's note taker. And I still need to meet Samuel. I'm not sure where Samuel is, but he is taking notes. So welcome to Samuel as well. So what I wanted to just chat about today was the possibility or the idea of discovering hidden talents within your team. And the brilliant thing about this is that if you've got a team and you've obviously read, you've got the person's CV, you know what the person is there to do, what particular job they're there to do. But it's absolutely brilliant to actually have additional, it's brilliant to have additional information about the skills and the talents that you have in the rest of your team. Now, all of you know very well that I like using sports analogies. And given that we play a lot of cricket in South Africa, I'm going to use that analogy, where the first there are 11 people in the team, and the first 4 or 5 players in your cricket team are usually expert or specialist batsmen, let's say. And then they have what they call is the middle order of your cricket team, where you've got players that do a good job at batting, very good at batting, but they're also, skilled as bowlers as well. And then your remaining 3 or 4 players in the 11-man team are usually bowling specialists. And that's the composition of your cricket team. And then you've got to have what's called a wicket keeper. So your wicket keeper there too is a specialist, but it could be obviously a batsman, because it's very seldom that you get a wicket keeper who is a bowler, because he can't do both at the same time.
No, I'm in a meeting. I think they've gone downstairs. There is lunch and learn.
Can we just ask you guys just to check your mute? Okay, there we go. So there's the cricket team analogy. But in your work situation, thanks, Hallie, for coming in there with a comment, and that's about baseball, which probably has similar principles to the cricket principles. But in a work scenario, what's really useful is when you know that you've got individuals in your team that have additional skills that they can bring to the party or bring to your business that enhances the efficiency and the productivity of your team. Now, I decided what I would do first was just list a quick 10 questions that you could actually ask your team members, just to give you an idea and possibly uncover, some of the hidden skills and talents in your organization. And then while I'm asking these questions, I thought I would ask you as individuals to put in the comments section what your main skill is that you offer, or what your profession is, and then perhaps list 1 or 2 other hidden skills or hidden talents that you have that we can share in the comments. And then what I'll do is I'll also ask 1 or 2 of you just to elaborate a little bit on some of the hidden talents that you have in your kit bag, if I can put it that way. So here's a few questions that will sort of help stimulate this discussion. What hobbies or interests do you pursue outside of your work? What hobbies or interests do you pursue outside of your work that could actually be applied in your work? If you could instantly become an expert in one skill, what would it be and why? If you could instantly become an expert in one particular skill, what would it be and why? And perhaps that's the question I'm going to come back to and ask you individually when we all participate. What's a problem you've solved in your personal life that could be applicable in your work? Are there any tools or technologies you're familiar with that you're not currently using? Are there any tools or technologies you're familiar with that you're not currently using? What's the most unusual, interesting job you've ever had? And if you could create a new role for yourself in the company, what would it be? If you could create a new role for yourself in the company, what would it be? And what skills have you developed in your previous roles that you haven't had a chance to use here in this organization, let's say, in your current role? And is there a project or initiative you've always wanted to start but haven't had the opportunity to? And I'm going to come back to that particular question later on in one of the following slides. And then what skills or what's a skill you're currently working on improving in your spare time? In other words, you're aware, there's self-awareness that you actually can do your job better if you develop this skill outside of the organization. And if you could teach a course to your colleagues, what would it be about? And I think that's also a really cool thing to consider in discovering hidden talents, because I always found that it was helpful that when you had like a big meeting and you were doing some coaching in one of these meetings, that you as the leader didn't have to talk all the time, that you actually got your colleagues to present on something curious and interesting and relevant to the job as a whole. So let's have a look at the comments. I haven't had a good look at all of them. Hallie's been very active. If you guys also have a read through there. Hidden talents: dancing, singing, humanitarian and organizational skills. Global director is the most interesting. Accounting. Yes, you're an accountant. Christian guidance, strong appointment. Okay, so now I'm going to actually come to you guys, and I'm going to start. Okay, I'll give you a minute and a half each. And then I'm going to, with your permission, stop you so that we can all have a go at this. I'm not sure, Jenny, give me a thumbs up if you can talk or not, in which case I will or won't ask you. So let's start with Junior. Junior, what skills have you got, hidden talents, that, that we don't know about, that you don't use as frequently as you should?
Maybe I used it too much as stirring shit. Sorry for words like it, but I've got the skill for stepping into things, and especially when I was younger, because I didn't have that self-awareness to understand how we impact on each other. So at the moment, most probably the skill that I rely most on is not looking at skill, but rather looking at the wider spectrum of why do we think we have a hidden talent, when talent is just a summary of quite a few things that come together. So I think the skill, if we take it from that, is trying to create a context around what we're experiencing, and then giving a context around the people that is experiencing it and how they reciprocate in their experiences and their behaviors that comes off it. So I think that's most probably the skill that we've developed rather than a talent, and it's having the right data, or how can I say, background, just come through experience.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you. Hallie, if you want to quickly come in.
Sorry, I had to close the chat for it to want to let me talk there for a second. Sorry. So my hidden talents I already gave. I think for me, I'm constantly learning. For the global director is a new challenging role. It's not utilizing my accounting, it's utilizing the social skills. I've been blessed all my life to be around social responsibility. My parents had me raised in an organization, Junior Chamber of Commerce, which was the JCs here in the States.
Yeah.
And I've seen social responsibility they were there when I was born. So I've seen it all my life. And I don't think without those skills, I wouldn't be able to talk to anybody. One of my skills is, I see people on the street, I smile at you, I say hi, or a simple question, how are you today? And sometimes that blossoms into some of the most interesting conversations I've had and meeting some of the most unique people. So of all walks of life.
Fantastic. Yeah, look, I think what you've just nailed is simply the ability to be comfortable under sort of any circumstances and meet and greet people with a big smile, engage them, chat to them. And as you've just rightly said, the gems and the gold that you discover in meeting perfect strangers is just such a it is a skill. It's an innate sort of capability that is so powerful and so meaningful. The connections that you can make out of that, and the friendships, and just simply chatting to people and listening to them is such a great skill. Welcome, Penny. We're going to ask you a question in 1 minute's time. I'm first going to give Jennifer a go. Jenny, I don't know if you can talk or not. Just let me know. I'm not sure. Sometimes she's just listening in. I don't think she's able to talk. So I'm going to go to Frances. Frances, what hidden talents and skills do you have that you're not currently using in your work? Can you talk?
Okay, sorry, I was trying to unmute myself.
Okay.
I just didn't know why it wasn't doing that. So in terms of hidden talents that I haven't really had the chance to really think about what it is or what skills it is that I am not using at the moment. Maybe I would say that I am underutilizing. Maybe I'm underutilizing some of my skills. So let me think of, in terms of graphics design, I do a bit of graphics, but then I get told that I could, go into the actual nitty-gritty of it, learn applications like Illustrator. But I have the Illustrator app on my laptop and I open it every time and I close it again because I'm scared to go into that territory. So maybe there, yes.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Okay. Well, thank you. So I'll have to remember that. So, Pen, what skills do you have in your current line of work that you're not using? And I know you very well that you've got all the charm in the world. So that's a skill that you utilize very, very comfortably and very well. But what other skills do you have that we don't know about you'd like to share? You have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, there we are. I said I'm a little nervous to answer that.
Okay.
No, so I do a little bit of life coaching, which is kind of separate to my business that I do. But I do find that it is massively helpful in my business environment. And I have also previously been in a training capacity where I have trained people in my own field, just to upskill them and train. And so that's I don't know if it's a talent though. I don't know how good I really was. Maybe I was absolutely frotted at it, but but that is what I can do.
Oh, good. Well, I mean,
currently not doing.
it does apply to new appointments, perhaps, and building belief and confidence in them to go and make the sales and ask for the sale, etc. You know, so there would definitely be, I see an absolute crossover there too. So let's get into it. And I'm always conscious of time because we do natter on a little bit. But one of the ways that we can, I've really only just got 5 slides, so we're going to talk to them, and I'm going to invite you all to participate in this as well. And that is assigning team members to projects outside their usual roles can help, you know, define or reveal what they call is latent talent in the organization. And it also encourages people to step out of their comfort zone so they can uncover strengths that aren't utilized in their current roles. Now, I must say, when I started out doing my fundraising in Australia over 20 years ago, I worked for very small organizations, and I was pretty much a one-man band. So it was down to everything. It was down to marketing. It was down to sales. It was down to operations. It was down to administration. It was down to fundraising. Everything that I did in a fundraising sense was done by myself. So I developed a general knowledge of the whole process, I guess. And I must say that as I developed in my career, I got into bigger and bigger organizations where, you know, the marketing was done by a separate person, and the actual campaigns were done by a separate person. The actual sales were done by different people. The finance side was done by separate people. And the leadership was back down or dependent on me. And the challenge then was actually managing all these different departments and having a reasonably good knowledge of what was going on in those departments. But what was so really interesting was managing those skills and matching them with the skills of other folk in the organization. For example, I think one of the big challenges that I always found was the duration of particular projects. Like, let's say we were project managing a particular campaign, was to align the speed of the completion of the task or the project, and making sure that the people that were very quick workers, fast workers, you could deploy them, they could get their job done, whilst others were catching up to them with this particular project. And then assigning someone who, for example, had finished a job in 1 or 2 days that was supposed to take a week with everyone else, and then reassigning them to another project. And that's when you can actually get people to help one another and do sort of cross-departmental projects, and you know, to really create the teamwork and facilitate that as a leader. And just keeping up with that, to me, was something I always found particularly interesting. So I'm going to ask Junior to come in here, and, you know, in a professional sense, and I know Junior's experience is largely around mining and so on, but how often is this practice in mining that you would actually deploy people into cross-departmental projects? How common was that practice?
Actually very common because of interrelationship between different disciplines. The problem why these projects fail generally, or do not do as well as they do, is that we more relate to a skill and we do not relate to a talent. And this is controversial for a lot of people to listen to and to understand. Literally, a skill means something that you've learned in a linear dimension, meaning you gain the knowledge, you gain the experience by repeatedly doing the same thing in a controlled environment. when here and there having the exposure to an uncontrolled environment. Normally, the environment is relatively controlled because everything is known around them. So a person doesn't really get tested that widely on the, how can I say, challenging new concepts, because in most organizations, the change process is actually more incremental, looking at a, how can I say, perfecting what's already being done rather than a radical change.
Right.
So the issue lies with skills when we start talking about cross skills or cross department or functional skills, is that we're fascinated by what we think of people are doing, and that's connected to a knowledge of what they're practicing. But what's underlying, not emphasized or looked at, is that despite you having a skill doing something, there is actually on a deeper level a similar utilized talent, which that relate to either a linear dimension or a non-linear dimension, where you use this talent that drives you able to do that skill. And this is where the critical thing comes into. People who are more linear aligned or will be more rigidly relying on their knowledge and the experiences that they had, whereas the people that's non-linear aligned will not use that as a justification as a base for their participation. And this is where the problem starts. That clash between those two, because the non-linear will challenge those that's more linear and more, and what we'll find also, those who is more linear aligned, who's placing greater emphasis on the fact that they are technical experts or specialists, they'll rather go out and take anything that seems to be a challenge and personalize that challenge, rather than saying, hey, wait a second, aren't these people maybe seeing, although they're not maybe in the function, special or skilled, or supposed to be skilled in this function, why is it that they're challenging this point? And this is one of the biggest issues that we're missing. And this is why digital transformations and major organizational transformations fail, is because each person is sitting on their own little hill, king of a hill, and they want to protect that hill instead of looking at the broader picture. And
Thanks.
People get over promoted due to that specialization rather than the broader talent to be able to cross-functional function.
Thank you, Junior. We can always count on Junior for giving us an exceptionally detailed reply to some of the questions that I have. And clearly, you're an expert in this field. So we're going to come back to you again, Junior, when we have a further discussion around this. So one of the things too that I'm going to just touch on briefly, and we've discussed this at length before, was regular one-on-one meetings. And what I like to have was one-on-one probably twice a month. And that was an open agenda, 15 to 20-minute quick catch-up. And it related to the person as a whole. And we did go into this once before, so I'm not going to dwell on this too much today. But it's very easy just to ask, directly the question that I've just asked you now, what are the hidden talents that you have that you could be using in your work? And one of my favorite questions around the one-on-ones was, if you were in my position now, what would your next step be? What would, if in your role, if I were to give you a next step in your role, what would that be? In other words, you creating a self-awareness and getting the person to think themselves what they should be doing next in their particular role and taking responsibility for that. So thanks, guys, for your participation there. We're going to go on to the next one. And I think I'm not altogether that familiar with, in my experience, of having job rotations. I can only really think of one or two instances that were with people that did have job rotations, where you'd get someone working in a role for, say, Monday to Wednesday, or Monday and Tuesday, and then getting someone else to fill that role for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So it was really job sharing instead of job rotation. And I'd be curious to hear if anyone in the group has successful experience themselves in job rotation. And bearing in mind what Junior said earlier, you know, is where there are sort of technical skills that could potentially be dropped, as it were. Let me explain that a bit better so that I understand you as well, Junior, that where there were technical skills, where there was sort of continuity required with those technical skills, I suppose that would be much more difficult to have job rotation in those instances. But if anyone would like to come in, please pop your hand up and unmute yourself, and let's hear from you. Jenny, how about you, Jennifer?
Yeah, so when I'm working with teams, so a lot of my clients have expressed the interest in making sure that all of their team members know how to do everything. And that's most of the case, you know, people leave, people, you know, have emergencies and can't come in. And but as far as creating any kind of like a formal training for that, like a job rotation program, my clients have been woefully underprepared for that, and to be fair, my focus with them as I'm working with them hasn't been on that, only in the fact that I'm trying to get them, like, it's a great, for me, in my clients, it's a good long-term, mid to long-term strategy. But when I'm thinking short-term, when I'm with a client in the first 2 to 3 months, we're focusing on other things as far as job rotation. But I do see the value in it. And I know you guys were talking about what, I don't know if there was a name, but the essentially like the agile project management, where when one piece gets finished sooner, you can move them on to another piece to help the rest of it.
That's right.
And yeah, and that is good when it's possible. And I don't want to take too much of your time, so I guess it is good, and I see it when like for me, I want to be able to be more of a generalist and understand more of all of the different roles that I'm expected to be in.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And you know, as I expressed earlier, you know, when you're a junior in an organization, or you're a one-man band, as I was in fundraising early on in my career, you do learn all the different skills and you become a bit of a generalist. I want to welcome a very dear friend of mine, Armin Gregorian, and he's based in Yerevan in Armenia. Welcome, Armin. He's a great friend of mine that I met many years ago in Oxford, actually. And we've always kept in touch. So welcome, and thank you for coming along. I'll let you listen to a little bit of the conversation before I ask you to make a few comments. But this is more of a like a podcast, really, than a masterclass. And we all participate. And we've got a couple of regulars here today. So it's great to just get together and have a chat and discuss stuff around skills and business and leadership. So, the other thing I was going to just quickly touch on today, and that is the idea that you know, if you're doing internal training in your organization, I found it was always very helpful to get other departments to come and give us a quick update, you know, 20 minutes or half an hour on exactly what they do in their part of the organization. And not only did that help you get a greater understanding of how the rest of the organization actually functions, but you could then too reciprocate to their organization to tell them what you were doing. And I keep coming back to my experience, and that was around fundraising. So it was really important to understand, you know, how specialist areas of a university was working, for example, and we would get a dean or the head of a school to come and explain to us exactly what they were doing, which was very, very interesting, and it broadened the knowledge that we all had about a particular project that we were raising money for. So the idea of broadening skill sets is just getting a better understanding of how the whole organization actually works. So I think I've given you enough time, Armin, to come in here and share some of your broad experience. How would you broaden skill sets in your organization and discover hidden talent in an organization? And you can just talk to the slide or talk generally, and we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's great to be here. I mean, it's great to see you again, Rick. It's great. Thank you, everybody else. It's a wonderful opportunity, I think. In terms of broadening skill set, I mean, do you mean like broadening skill sets of one individual or broadening skill sets in a team setting? Everybody else's broadening everybody else's skill set.
I think both. You know, by sharing your individual skill sets. And knowledge and experience, you're actually throwing the net out there and actually making people aware that, hey, you know what, here's a guy who's brilliant at Excel or spreadsheets, you know, and if you're, you know, yeah, is when you share your skills and make people just simply aware of what your skills are, instead of outsourcing them or getting them from outside of the organization when you've actually got them inside your organization. That's what I really mean. So I was wondering if you perhaps had any a social experiment, you know, that you've done, been successful.
Yeah, I mean, just I'm coming from my own setting. I've been thinking about some topics recently as well about like linked to this. But for example, it would be in terms of broadening general skill set. I think it's a good thing to have a reading culture within the organization. So let's say we have a startup, and I'm thinking about, you know, to order a couple of books actually this week that I think is very important to share. I think fundamental, you know, kind of good reads that helps people to excel. And that's one of the things. And the other one is to delegate. So I think an important aspect of broadening skill sets and sharing of skill sets is to be able to delegate as a leader, and how you do it. So how can you delegate and at the same time for people to grow and have a future, let's say, where you can actually trust the full thing to somebody. And so I think that's an important thing, and I'm trying to think about this right now also.
Fantastic. Thanks, Armin. Thanks for your input there. I'm going to keep moving. As I say, we've had a good discussion so far, and for those of you whose comments I haven't read yet, I'm trying to catch up with them too. So yeah, and then I think one of the big things on the next slide is really guiding people to reach their full potential. And I know it sounds a bit of a cliche, but it's certainly my elevator pitch is, you know, elevating people to their highest potential. And it's something that I've always found the most pleasure in, whether it was in the army or whether it was coaching tennis and getting juniors to represent their state and actually play internationally, or whether it was my successes in 3 of my roles. I remember in fundraising, senior positions, all my successes were people that had been my assistants before. And I was very, very proud of the fact that they knew so much about my role that I encouraged them to actually apply for my role when I left. And I suppose it gave them a great advantage, but it was something that I was particularly proud of. And sometimes hilariously so, because I had one staff member or assistant who would always get herself into a tangle, and she would phone me and hilariously explain what had gone wrong, and we'd have to try and fix some of the things. But it was done in such a great spirit and in such a fun way that I loved being able to continue to help guide her and mentor her in her role. The other thing that I was quite familiar with, and I used quite frequently with people that worked very, very quickly in their roles, that were underutilized, was actually to encourage them to do long-term, what I called side projects. It may have been articles, for example, in magazines outside of the organization, contribute to marketing your organization in articles, as I say, that were unrelated to the organization I was with, and take them out of their comfort zone and have them publish articles in marketing material that was outside of their organization. And that was always something that I felt was extremely useful. And then to allowing people to do, or employees to pursue side projects can really uncover a lot of innovation and satisfy some of their primary interests, if I can call it that. And that too allows for them to feel appreciated and helps improve your retention of those staff. So they still have the opportunity to practice some of their side projects, but that also contribute to the retention in the organization because they're such good workers and that they're so happy in their environment. So I found that was always something that I encouraged a great deal. If there are any comments around that, please pop them in the comments section and I'll come back to that. But yeah, I think Hallie's points around delegation and what else was she saying here? And mentoring programs, yes. I think that was really helpful to me, and I see that in the comment section, Hallie has said that she's been.
Yes, I was
great.
saying mentorship was very important to me. I had a well mentor at Caterpillar. I was able to go through, I was selected for the mentor program to be a mentee, and I had the person who led us to the Balders Award. He was a businessman outside of accounting. We had we used Berkman profiles quite a bit at Caterpillar to work with our team so that people could see the different personality styles. And so he was of opposite Berkman profile to me. And so it was well to have him throughout, someone I could go to outside of accounting, could speak freely about anything too. He gave me that opportunity. So I really like a mentorship program.
Fantastic. Thank you, Hallie. Okay, so then I'll come back to you, Junior. I'll give you 2 minutes around this one. Give yourself a bit of a plug here around skills and talent assessment. But essentially, what's really important too is identifying or using tools to help identify people's strengths in their organization. And I think in your organization, but also using skills that people have outside of their work environment, I always found was something that could definitely benefit. As I think I alluded to in one of the previous talks, was a guy in our team had been a radio presenter and just was so good at interviewing people and having the skill of standing up in front of large crowds and presenting and doing award ceremonies and so on was always a wonderful skill set to have, because culturally he was attuned to what was happening around him in the environment and in the region. So he was well known and a lot of people knew him as well. And he was a great speechwriter as well. So that was fantastic skill to have in our team, that we could always call on him to manage the show. So Junior, do you want to quickly come in here and give your spiel about the skills assessment tools or the talent assessment tools that you guys have?
Well,
and I'm giving you 2 minutes.
Well, we're going to differentiate between a skill assessment and a talent assessment. It's not the same thing.
Right.
This is where the biggest mistake gets made. When they look at skills, they look more at the behaviors, and this is where all these different profilers that they use, where they assign somebody a role or a definition for a role and a role name. Very seldom do they actually look at what's actually underlying talent as a driver. It's more behavior that emerges from that person's individual experience within an environment where they take on some abilities that they do exist naturally, but not necessarily the full range, but allows them to do something. The biggest mistake we then end up making is trying to reinforce those behaviors, thinking this is this person's skill or talent or whatever. Meanwhile, it's just a reaction to that environment, and where they are either negatively or positively reacting to that according to how they're able to adapt to that environment. So if we talk talent, is something totally different. What we see as talent, and people refer to as talent, is a visible evidence of a combination of factors that work together that allows somebody to do something, but that's not the talent. The actual talent is underlying, and we go back here, if we go back to the psychology, we go to things like Kettlehorn and Carroll, it's got to do with a combination of cognitive, psychomotor functions, and then what they refer to as effective, is that ability to bring in the emotional side into it. And when you combine those three individual components and apply it into a certain area where the person has a natural preference to want to participate, then we have an effect of them visually doing something which people then refer to as talent.
Right. Okay.
And this is the misconception we have. So skill is your ability to learn something in a specific parameter using some of those or not all of those tools effectively, which is also part of a talent criteria in our bottom, but it's more based on a repetitive pre-designed use within a format that is recognized and then that's tested in a controlled environment. And if you achieve a certain level of replication, then they start calling you competent or incompetent or expert or whatever. But it does not mean that you're talented. And that is a contradictory, because being talented may mean that you need to then be able to adapt that skill in a new uncontrolled environment that you have never been exposed to before. Then all of a sudden the skill disappears or the talent disappears, because it's not talent, it is a complexity driver that lies underneath it. So if it makes sense, the way that I explained it.
I do get what you're saying. So let me ask you a sort of supplementary question and a quick answer to this. If you were to hire someone, would you hire someone based on talent or skill?
We start with a talent and then we validate the skill.
Fantastic. Fantastic. That's really clever. And thank you for that. That's something I think we can all do as leaders, is remember that we can hire on talent and develop a skill. Thanks, Junior. I really appreciate that. I think too, one of the points I was going to make around feedback and recognition was that the more effort we put into developing strengths and improving people's strengths, in my view, the more focus we spend on doing that, I think is better for an organization and better for the individual as well. People, certainly in my instance, I would like to develop my strengths and hire or supplement for my weaknesses and get people to help me and delegate where I was weak in an organization. Is anyone going to challenge me on that? I'm not asking you, Junior. I'm going to ask Armin. Can you come in? I'm not sure if you're still there. Armin, would you hire or would you develop strengths or weaknesses in an individual? Are you there? Okay, it looks like we've lost him for the moment. Penny, I'm going to give you a go. Would you develop strengths in your sales team? Or would you develop?
It's so interesting, Junior. I absolutely loved what you said there because, so often you can hire someone with all the correct degrees and credentials, etc. And that particular person can be so wrong for the job. Whereas you can hire someone that has the natural talent for a particular position and their work performance can be exceptional. So I love the fact that you would say hire on talent and then develop the skill. I think that is just brilliant. And I'm going to use that going forward. So thank you so much for that.
Well, there we go. Thanks, Penny. That was great of you to endorse Junior there. And I'm going to take that away as well as, something to really think about. Okay, guys, we are conscious of time once again. And I just wanted to dwell on this little bit for a while. And that was about creativity in your role and innovation in your role. Recently, a colleague of mine or a friend of mine was involved in a 36-hour hackathon to develop a particular project. And there were over 200 people involved, and it was continuous. People obviously could go away and rest and sleep and what have you, but the actual hackathon was for, I think, 36 hours. And it was across multitude of countries. And in the sort of head office of the hackathon, I'm not exactly sure how many people there were, but there were 100 or 200 people focusing on one problem to solve. Now, I haven't been in a situation like that. The closest I've been to a hackathon is sort of a weekend with management and a board, and getting across, building a team and writing the broad brush plan for the next year or year or two. Maybe it was a strategic planning session, which sometimes get a bad rap. But I think generally speaking, if you've got a great facilitator for your innovation weekend or strategic planning weekend, you can stimulate a great deal of discussion and help thrash out some innovative approaches to the next year or two in your particular business. So if anyone would like to come in there and share perhaps their most productive innovation day or hackathon, and perhaps give me an example of some creativity that you may have used there. How about you again, Penny? I'll come back to you.
Rick, you've got me thinking, because I don't think I've really ever been involved in such a thing other than just sort of team build kind of, and getting input from. Sometimes I often think sometimes it's quite important to allow your team to give you feedback on your performance in a safe environment. And I always encourage that with my team. And I've always said, you're never too qualified or too old or too experienced to stop learning. Yeah. So I used to encourage my staff to, if they felt I was doing something wrong or they weren't happy with something that I'd implemented, I used to encourage them to come and address it with me in a very safe environment. But I don't believe we've ever did it in a open forum.
Yeah. So I think Yeah, just to help you a little bit with that, I think and to add to what you've just said there now, that 360 peer review feedback is always so helpful. And occasionally in the university environment, we would have sort of like a town hall meeting, if I can use that phrase, where people were invited to, 100, 200 people in a lecture room to give feedback to the vice chancellor. And it was a guided sort of session, but in many instances, it brought out some extremely relevant frontline issues that were being faced by individuals that were sort of lower in the hierarchy, for want of a better description, that would come up with some of the challenges they were facing, on the ground, as it were. And they would bring up these matters that would then be responded to by management and the leadership, and then acted upon, So I think I found that was always a very brave move to take by leadership, because you never knew exactly what you would expect and what was going to come from the ground. And you had to take it on the chin if there was some serious issues that were being brought up that you just absolutely didn't know anything about. But that level of vulnerability was a fantastic way of demonstrating good leadership and good listening and action, that you could take on that. So, guys, if Hallie, if you want to quickly come in there, I know you've been typing furiously there, so I'll let you have a go.
I was just giving feedback throughout, but I was like, I always use Caterpillar, but we did 360 degree feedback on managers. We also had company surveys, and it was employee engagement surveys. And so the company as a whole was looking at the whole company and saying, give us feedback. What are we not doing for you as an employee? What would make it better for you as a company each year? And so then they would compare those feedbacks year over year as well. So you could see, and then we would have meetings and discussions, and you would also, that feedback was not just the company, it would then narrow down to your team, to your group, because they align the survey to say, which department are you in? Who's your manager? And so it was not just the manager requesting feedback from time to time from their team, it was also the company asking for feedback of the manager of the team, as well as the full company, all encompassed. So that was just what I was adding in company surveys.
Fantastic. And it's a brilliant, world famous brand. So yeah, I've always admired their marketing, and of course the quality of their machinery, I must say. Must have been a great opportunity to work for them.
Yes, as I say, I was blessed to work for such a global company, and have the experiences and to meet the people I've met globally. So one of my best friends is in Melbourne, thinking of them.
Okay, cool. Okay, guys, thank you so much for coming along. Thank you to Hallie, to Armand, to Francis, to Jenny or Jennifer, Junior, and Penny. And Armand, special thanks to you coming all the way from Yerevan. I appreciate having you on our little podcast today. And I'm going to whip around the room just very quickly and put you on the spot right away. And that is, if you could instantly become an expert in one skill, what would it be? I'm not going to ask you why. I'm just going to ask you, what one skill would you like to instantly become an expert on? I'm going to start at the top of my list. Hallie.
We already used it. Delegation. My son's great at it, but I wasn't.
Armand, what one skill?
I don't know, probably listening.
Listening. Okay, I'll second that skill, because I need to get better at listening too. Frank says, what one skill would you like to be instantly an expert in?
For me, I would say one skill. Okay.
Anyone?
This one just hit me.
Yeah.
I'll probably say time management.
Okay, cool. I must remember that. No, well done. Who else? Next, Jennifer. What one skill would you like to instantly become an expert at?
Yeah, I'm gonna say persuasion.
Okay, that's a good one. Yeah, absolutely. Very good. Who am I asked? Penny.
I would love to be skilled at reading body language.
Okay, that's also a very interesting one. Good. And then finally, Junior, what one skill would you like to instantly become an expert at?
Just walk away.
Just walk away. Okay. That's a good one too. That's made me think. Okay, guys, I want to thank all of you. You've been absolutely fabulous. It's great to have all the regulars. It's great to have a newcomer. And I want to wish you all a fantastic week. And we'll carry on next week again. Thanks so much. Cheers.
Thank you, everybody. Great conversation.
Okay, then. Bye.
Thanks, Rick. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
See you guys. See you. Bye-bye.